Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the comprehensive study, the comprehensive yet informal, I should say. This isn't very formal. Study of Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. Yay, we're in the transcendental deduction, and I am recording this only a few minutes after the last session, so it would feel really redundant, especially to go over what we just went over. But there were some important, very important, and very new which is maybe surprising considering how redundant Kant can be at times. So there's some very new and important material having to do with specifically this last thing, some good definition of objects and objectivity and how it relates to opperception. And it looks like we're going to get more of that here in this section. So definitely check out last time if you haven't. And there was some stuff at the end that in quote unquote real time we just went over a few minutes ago about the understanding and its as its status as the first principle, and also of here how we need to synthetically grasp it before we can analytically grasp it, but we can do both, and we do in fact do both, at least when we're like reading this book. So that's my little quick context. I don't know if you have anything to add, Patrick. This introduction might even be
Let's keep
longer
them
than
pretty rapid fire. We don't want to make this introduction longer than the paragraph
I
we're
was gonna
about to.
say. Yeah, that's very, because if you see here, it is actually in fact very short. So I'd say we can just probably get going on it.
All right, take it
So
away, Matt.
yeah, this is what objective unity of self consciousness is. So let's find that out. Even though we got a little maybe a taste of it before, let's get more into it now. The transcendental unity of opperception is that unity through which all the manifold given in an intuition is united in a concept of the object, so like a category. Um, it is called objective on that account because it is applied to the object, and must be distinguished from the subjective unity of consciousness, which is a determination of inner sense. So objects are not inner for Kant, they are outer. This is what makes them different than like Berkeley, for example, just to draw the distinctions for clarity's sake, through which that manifold of intuition is empirically given for such a combination.
So
What?
I'm gonna have to butt in just
Yeah.
to disagree with what you said there.
Uh,
So,
oh, because of God. I'm sorry. I always.
no, well, not
Oh,
even because
oh.
of that, but because when we look at the inner versus outer distinction,
Mm-hmm.
right? In Kant, and I would argue also in Berkeley, what is the ground of the distinction between something being an inner, um, for Berkeley it would be an idea,
Mm.
for Kant it would be representation, right? What is the difference between inner and outer? The difference is space, being presented in space. So for Berkeley, the ideas are still outer.
Mm. Right,
So
because they're being perceived by the inner. Okay.
rather, he's talking about simply the
Or the
distinction
subject, I guess.
between um, what the subjective unity of consciousness, your awareness that you are, and the awareness that you were having an experience, which is external to you.
But all ideas are in the mind in Barclay. So, but I get
Yes, but it's not your. Well, first of all, not only is it not your mind,
it's God's
but
mind.
second of all, yeah, but second of all, right? It's not. It's not a mind, non-mind distinction, right? Because all representations are in the world of appearances, which is ultimately subjective for Kant. No.
In a different way than this, I guess. Yeah.
Well, it's subjective in the sense of like, uh, we do not have a direct experience of a
Yes.
reality which is fully external to our faculties,
For Kant, that's correct. Yeah.
right? So, what reality we experience is, in a sense, in our faculties, namely in sensibility and
Mm-hmm.
understanding, right? So, it is phenomenon in that sense. So, it is inner in the sense you're thinking of, in the sense that Barclays would be conceived of as also inner. So they're both inner in that sense. But the distinction Kant actually makes between inner and outer is that outer is conditioned in space,
Mm-hmm.
so that we experience it as distinct from ourselves,
So
which we do not have a spatial awareness of.
I
We
think
like
that's the
our,
that
our own subjectivity does not exist in space, according to Kant.
But that's
It
why I
only
wanted to bring up Berkeley, because it exists. Even wouldn't Berkeley say that that it's still the ideas that are outer to us are still like inner to the mind of God,
um
which is something Kant is totally not saying here, which is the distinction I was
I'm
trying to
not
bring up.
sure Berkeley would presume to know the mind of God to that extent.
Oh, I thought that was like foundational. I don't know. Maybe I was just
Not
taught Berkeley
necessarily.
poorly.
So
But
for Berkeley, right? Ideas in here are constantly perceived by God, and this is what like gives us object permanence.
oh,
The ideas are constantly perceived by God. So
but
in
they're
that
not
sense,
in
you
the
could
mind
say
of
they're.
God.
It depends on what you mean by inner, right? The Kantian definition of inner versus outer is inherently spatial. And Berkeley still adheres to classical theism, I believe, which means that God isn't spatial. So you can't
Oh,
say in one sense it like he would probably draw like a classic Thomas distinction and say they are in God in the sense that they have their being through the being of God, but they are not in God in the sense of
like they're in the mind
they
of
exist
God.
in they exist in space, right?
Mm,
And God is non-spatial.
okay. All right.
But God is a mind, not an idea,
All right.
and minds are non-spatial.
Yes. Okay. So
So,
I
to
was a little
return to
fucked up of an example. My bad, but
yeah, I mean it's hard to compare Kant to Berkeley on here because Berkeley does not use this inner-outer distinction. Period. He just
yeah,
doesn't.
I was just trying
But
to like make one up that what I thought Barclay might say, but that is hard for me to
but
even
like yeah, but
establish. So
rather what I think
so my
makes
bad.
this distinction meaningful is the space distinction. Um,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
The one thing that's got me questioning this, though,
Mm-hmm.
also, is it says the subjective unity of consciousness is a determination of inner space. Can we back up to the last page where he defines object?
Oh, this is inner sense, by the way. Just I don't. So
Sure.
okay.
Inner sense, yes, that's what I meant to say.
Okay. I didn't know if that had an
Right. An
effect on.
object, however, is a concept of which the manifold of a given intuition is united. Okay, so here's the problem,
Mm-hmm.
right? Time is a manifold,
Okay.
right? Our time is united as one concept, namely the concept of self. So it would seem that properly speaking, right, um, even our inner, even our inner like apperception, right, the I
Mm-hmm.
am should be considered objective.
Um. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, here's what I'm saying. According to Kant,
Because
we
it's a
should be
unity.
an
Yep.
object for ourselves. Yeah,
Yes. Because it's a
even our
unity.
like subjective self-consciousness should be an object for ourselves,
Yes. Because it's
which
a
is a
unified
problem
manifold.
because like if we turn back, right, yeah, it's a unified manifold, namely that of time. But if we turn back to this page, the page we were on, right, he says it is called objective on that account and it must be distinguished from the subjective unity of consciousness, which is a determination of inner
Oh,
sense.
but inner sense should be an object.
But inner sense should be an object according to the definition of object he gave previously. I think this is merely an oversight and he needed to refine his definition of object.
Yeah, I was gonna say because I feel like he's still getting at something valuable. It's just the words are fucked up.
Yes, I think he's using his words wrong.
So
I don't think that
we
that
should try to like rephrase this
necessarily.
right now to just for the sake of clear
Okay, well, let's
understanding.
see if we can. I think what we would need to rephrase is our definition of object,
Right.
which could have some implications.
Well, let's maybe instead of doing that, let's just pick a new word that would like get across what he's trying to say.
Well, okay, I think probably what he's trying to say, I think he's simply trying to say that an object needs to be outer.
Mm,
So if we turn back, right, an object, however, is that in which the concept of which the manifold of a given outer intuition
uh
is
huh.
united.
Mm,
If he said that, I think it would solve all the problems.
okay.
I don't think it would introduce any new ones, but I haven't read like the whole work. I mean, I have read the whole work, but I haven't understood the whole work well enough
Yeah.
to
Well, you
know
haven't
whether
comprehensively yet informally gone through the
exactly.
entire.
But provisionally, I think he probably meant to say that an object is that in which the form of which a given outer intuition is united.
Okay. Sure.
because that'll enables us to
To
preserve
make
like a
this distinction
distinction
between inner sense and
between
outer
our
sense.
between the
Which
subjective
honestly
unity
would be
of
consistent
this.
because he made that distinction before, between outer and
Right,
inner sense. I don't remember
right,
exactly where he did that. I think it was the beginning of the
right.
logic or something, but yeah.
But there's a minor inconsistency here. I realize that this is pedantic,
Yeah.
but we are reading Kant. I
So
exercise
it
the
is
right to be
very,
pedantic.
yes. And
It's
honestly
less
that's great.
pedantic than he's being.
I didn't even pick up on that, so that definitely is a good little nuance there. Um, okay. Sure. So I'll just read from there.
All
After
right.
whether I can become empirically conscious of the manifold as simultaneous or successive. So there's the time. Um, or sorry, wait. Let me read that again. Whether I can become empirically conscious of the manifold as simultaneous or successive depends on the circumstances or empirical conditions. Hence, the empirical unity of consciousness, through the association of the representations, itself concerns an appearance and is entirely contingent. The pure
That's
form
a corollary, but isn't that interesting?
um,
That our awareness of self is
is
only an
empirical.
awareness of yeah, it's empirical and it's only
Yes.
an awareness of appearance of self.
Yes. This isn't super surprising to me because I guess I've done that before. But
But that's a very interesting observation, and
yes.
that's ultimately is what we were talking about, how he distinguishes what he's talking about from Descartes, right?
Mm,
According to Descartes, I know, I think, therefore I am. Therefore I
is
know myself in
is
my own substance.
yes
But
is a
according to Kant,
priori like
all I
non-empirical.
know is the appearance
Mm,
of myself to myself.
mm. Yep. Uh, and then well, oh yeah. So this is like the two different eyes. Zizek talks a lot about this. I think anyway. This is what he means by like uh, split subject. We have like this transcendental I that like does this, but then we have like the everyday kind of I, which is the empirical one.
Right.
And,
So is the idea here that the um not the appearance of I, but the I in itself is responsible for the transcendental unity of our perception, yet the transcendental unity of our perception only gives the appearance of I. Is that what you
not yes. I don't want to say only. Like only seems a bit strong, but generally yes, and maybe only. I don't know, but yeah, generally you have the right idea. Zizek likes to like use like analogies of like projection, and he's like a big psychoanalysis guy. So like,
that sounds very similar to yogic philosophy.
which is
Hindu, the Upanishads,
oh
right?
okay yeah.
Right, the idea of an Atman or a
Mm.
true self, and then a projection of
Exactly.
that yourself.
Yes, exactly. That is pretty much metaphysically that's what's going on here. We have a true, well, transcendental self for Kant. True is would be weird to call it in Kantian sense, but yes, as an analogy, at least that works. And then yes, we have the projected empirical self that is, which, like you were saying, happens through time. Simultaneous or successive. Uh, yeah. So there's a transcendental self and a projected empirical self. Zizek kind of also described it as like we put ourselves into. Oh, I think he made some like video game analogy or something where it's like we make the game and then we put ourselves in it and so we live this double life as like the developer and the player. Um, yeah, so you could go on and on with all sorts of analogies, but that's kind of the idea here.
Right. So,
Um,
yes, just to get my verbiage correct, I'm
mm.
referring to the distinction between Atman and Ahamkara. For those of you who, for some reason, know Upanishadic philosophy,
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if there are like people watching this do because Schopenhauer was big on that stuff, and
fair enough. Yes, he
Schopenhauer
was.
is obviously very Kant fans. I'm sure are at least aware of Schopenhauer and his ties to
Well,
Upanishads and
it's not just that. I know I was encountering there was a Hindu student in my class that talked about how much he loved Kant because of his idea of duty
in your high
and
school
the
class.
resonance between no, in my in feminist ethical theory actually.
Oh,
And how similar he found that to be to the idea of dharma,
mm,
right? because dharma is a duty which is not to be pursued for any outcome. It is a categorical
Yeah,
imperative rather than a
deontological. Yeah.
hypothetical one. Right. So there's resonances really that begin. I mean, people think I think mostly about like Kant pre-existing, and then um, uh, Schopenhauer taking Upanishadic philosophy and fusing that into it. But
But really, it's
really, the
here.
ground is kind of laid there.
Yeah.
He's coming at it from a different place.
Yeah.
But what
Schopenhauer is the
Kant
first
does,
direct to link, I guess, like
but
directly,
Kant's
like.
Copernican revolution, right, is all about, okay, attend to the faculties,
Mhm.
examine the mind and the process of consciousness first,
Mhm.
which is
It's
really
phenomenology. Yeah.
right, but that's really what yoga is all about, as opposed to the more external dialectical philosophy that preceded Kant.
Yeah.
When I say external dialectical, I mean like demonstrative. You make arguments, right?
Hmm.
You're caught in the transcendental dialectic because you have not yet attended
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
your internal faculties. So critical philosophy really has a lot of
Just Eastern.
resonance with yoga. And so it's not very surprising when Schopenhauer picks up the Upanishads and is like, hey,
Whoa. Yeah. Yo. um,
but of course, let's remind ourselves the Upanishads are about 2,000 years older than the Critique of Pure Reason.
yeah, which is also something Schopenhauer points out, and he's like, "We're dumb." But to be fair, I think this extra rigor does add things.
It's more literal. Yes, I will agree. Although I don't think it's more literal than Nagarjuna. Like there's certain Buddhist texts that, because they rely on inference and like discard textual like the legitimacy of relying on pure text,
Mhm.
are much less metaphorical and much more strictly logical. So there are certain Buddhist texts that do attend to a similar level of rigor, in
Oh,
my
okay.
opinion.
Interesting. I wasn't
Not
aware.
so much the Hindu texts in that I have encountered.
Mm.
Although Hinduism is an incredibly broad, or it's not even a real. There's no such thing as Hinduism ultimately.
Yeah, it's kind of a blanket term. That.
Indeed, my point is, yeah, obviously, none of them have sort of like the background of Platonic dialectic, and are argue in a different way.
Yeah.
But I definitely wouldn't just say, oh, Eastern philosophy had this in a bunch of aphorisms, because it didn't.
Yes, there's still definitely some unique content here.
There was definitely like arguments and stuff. Anyway,
Mm, um,
I thought this was going to be short.
it
That's my
never
bad.
is, I guess. No, no, it's
That's
fine. This
my
is
bad.
good. This is cool. This adds like depth, I think, for sure, and
Yeah.
philosophical context and things for people to read and look into. So all
Right.
all worth it, especially considering it's going on the internet. So based. All right. I'm just trying to remember where I think hence, right?
Yes. Hence.
Hence, the empirical unity of consciousness, through association of the representations, itself concerns an appearance and is entirely contingent.
Okay, we did read that, but keep going.
Oh, I did. Okay, I don't even remember that. The pure form of intuition in time, on the contrary, merely as intuition in general, which contains a given manifold, stands under the original unity of consciousness, solely by means of the necessary relation of the manifold of intuition to the one I think. Thus, through the pure synthesis of the understanding, which grounds a priori the empirical synthesis. That unity alone is objectively valid. The empirical unity of apperception, which we are not assessing here, which is weird because we did assess it a little bit, but and which is also derived from the former under given conditions in concreto, merely subjective validity. One person combines the representation of a certain word with one thing, another with something else, and the unity of consciousness in that which is empirical is not, with regard to that which is given, necessarily and universally valid.
Just a little distinction.
Um,
Like we went on to a bunch of tangents, but the actual like main content of the paragraph doesn't
it's
seem to
just,
be
it's just, I find this title a little,
misleading.
yeah, because this isn't really, a, well, okay, I guess it's not if we're considering the little caveat that you started us off with, then it makes sense. But like objective as it was given like here, that's a little misleading.
Yeah.
Which I guess is what you pointed out in the beginning. So there's
Yeah,
not
that
really even.
kind of is. Yeah.
So there's not really even anything to go over there.
So
So yeah, that's
anticlimax.
edged. uh, no, but that was cool though. Empirical self versus transcendental self. Empirical I, transcendental I. Good stuff. Definitely important, especially for future philosophies. This is a big thing. Like I said, even in contemporary continental phil. Anyway. So yeah. Cool stuff. Good to see it in Kant. Good to see it in other places. Good to see in Eastern religions and philosophies, thought in general. Yeah, look into all that stuff. It's cool. And next time we'll be doing the logical form of all judgments consists in the objective unit. This is like a statement. This isn't even like a title. The logical form of all judgments consists in the objective unity of our perception of the concepts contained therein.
Kant.
Yeah. Kant can't satisfy himself. Oh, I'm a fourth grader, aren't I? Okay. Which also seems to be
Well, he
two
does
paragraphs.
say that satisfying himself violates the categorical imperative.
Yeah.
But Kant, everyone knows that Kant is very poor Kantian when it comes to actually applying his ethics.
True, as we went over in Dr. Cole's class and all that. Yeah. Anyway, these are tangents. Thanks for joining us in this section. Next time we'll see you for this. I'm not even going to repeat this because this is too long and just seems like just content instead of a preview. So we'll see you in section 19 in the next session.
Until next time, stay informal yet comprehensive.
Satisfy yourself.
Satisfy yourself.
Which seems like a joke for next time, but we'll say it here anyway. Alrighty, bye.